I just want to do a quick video today talking about the game I've just released, Gym Empire, a game that was meant to be a 6-month development cycle, turned into 8 years. I could easily say life got in the way, but I think a large part of it was I hadn't realized the scope of a game like this and some of the aspects that goes into developing the systems in a game like this. I always had big ambitions for Gym Empire. I wanted it to be a very specific type of game. It was influenced by Game Dev Story and the original Theme Hospital games. And I also wanted it to be a game that was community driven and had a lot of input from the community. Those things blew up the scope quicker than I thought they would. But also, there was aspects to building a tycoon game I'd never even considered, the save system being the biggest and most obvious one. The first game I developed, Glow, is like a Super Meat Boy / Inc. kind of game. And for a game like that, you only have to save really the level and maybe the score, just a couple of numbers. For Gym Empire, you have to save every object in the game, every position of every item that the player's placed, the angles of them, the statistics of your clients, and all this stuff all needs to be saved, and that becomes much more complex. To put it into context, it took me an entire year just to develop the save system alone, longer than the life cycle for a lot of games anyway, that especially games I would consider developing. That was a bit of a make or break moment for me. Once I got through building that save system, and you're right, it's a point in no return, I'm making this game. You know, in that period of time, I was already a dad when I started developing Gym Empire, but I became a dad twice again. I've got 3 kids now. COVID happened. Lots of stuff has happened that are the reasons why. I even started a YouTube channel. I wasn't a YouTuber when I started Gym Empire. All these things kind of like squeezed in and just turned that 6 months, which probably, realistically speaking, I should have thought would have been 2 years anyway, but blew it up into this 8-year life cycle. Now, I made some mistakes, some pretty obvious mistakes looking back now, but ones I think were more based on when I started making the game. So when I started making Gym Empire, tycoon games were a popular niche. I think they were one of the trending types of games for indie devs to create. I don't really think they are right now, and when I released, I think that kind of wave, I'd missed it. I should have released it more around the time I was developing it. If you're spending 8 years to develop a game, you're probably going to miss the wave you're trying to jump onto. The second thing, I went for an early access release to be then followed by a full release, which is what I've just done the full release last month, thinking I would get these 2 big release events. Doesn't work like that. And I think the popular consensus in the past when I started Gym Empire was that was how it worked. It seems like now that isn't really how it works. If you're doing early access, treat early access as your main release, and there's a few reasons that support that. If you've done an early access release, the main release afterwards is more like a pretty decent sale event. And because of those reasons, Gym Empire, it didn't perform to the levels I'd planned, anticipated, or dreamt of, but it definitely performed better than Glow did, and it's made me some money, which it's a game I'm very proud of. I've managed to build the game I plan to build, and I'm proud of what it's become, and I don't feel like I cut any corners to do that. Maybe it took me longer than it should have, but I can look back and think I'm really proud that I did that, and I learned a lot of things. The 2 main things I learned from it, number one is, like I say, treat early access as your main release. I'm probably never going to do an early access game again. 3 years ago when I released Gym Empire into early access, it was pretty decent. It sold about 100 copies in the first week, which, like, you know, a lot of people class that as a failure, but, you know, I was happy with it. And when I started reaching out to YouTubers and different publications, you know, I got responses. It worked. I had videos made about it. There was a bit of a buzz going on. It was great. When it came to the final release, I thought I can do that all again. You know, I can at least reach out to the YouTubers who were interested. But the responses I got were like, well, we already covered it in early access. We don't really want to cover it again. That surprised me. I think partly because it wasn't like, you know, a really popular game. They were like, it's not really worth our effort, you know. But I was surprised that you're not going to get that second chance with YouTubers as well, even though it's a separate release, big release event. And whereas I sold about 100 copies, like I said, in the first week of releasing into early access, when it was the full release, I only sold about 20 copies. And like I say, it's much more like a big sale event than a brand new release. You're not getting all that visibility you think you're getting from Steam and its algorithm in the same way for your final release after your early access release. The second thing I learned is that building up wish lists over an 8-year period is a terrible idea. Everyone says, like, get your Steam page up as early as possible. Get those wish lists building as much as possible, as early as possible. So on release, you've got the biggest number you can get. That's definitely true if you're working on maybe a 6 month to 1 year project. If you're working over a period of 8 years, the problem is a lot of those wish lists, especially the ones you got maybe in the first 4 years, they are quite likely a large percentage of them are going to be dormant or stagnant. Maybe people don't use their account anymore. Maybe some people have passed away, sadly so. There's so many reasons why the people behind those wish lists might either not be interested or might not even be there anymore. And I think I realized that I only had about 3,000 wish lists, but I didn't get the conversion I expected from that. Okay, we all want the 10,000, but I was happy with 3,000. I didn't get the conversion I expected from that. And I think that's because a significant portion of them were from the first 4 years of development. And like I say, I think a lot of them became dormant and stagnant. Now, to put it into context, since early access release, Gym Empire sold about 500 copies. And, it's done pretty decent. It's made a few thousand, which, I'm happy with. When I tell family members that, they're always like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. Like, oh, people are actually playing the game you made? So that's nice. I think a lot of people just think like, well, he's just making video games for a laugh, isn't he? I might make £5 here or there. So, it isn't the like $1 million studio kind of income I would love to have. It's not like quit my job kind of money, but it's people are playing my game and a little bit of money's coming in. So, it's been fun, it's been enjoyable, and I've learned so much from it. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Going to be a lot more videos coming out on this channel. But what I will say is this is an active house. Like I say, I've got 3 kids, a lot of stuff going on all the time. So there's going to be a lot of noise in the background you probably hear. So just bear with me and join me for the ride.